Hello, Liverpool fans. Welcome to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. Coach Ralph and I are excited to bring you this podcast. From games to players to club news, we cover everything LFC. You can find us on every platform and YouTube. Please take a second to follow or subscribe to the podcast. That way, you know when the latest podcast is up. Thank you for listening, and now on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Salim, and I got Coach Ralph with me, my other co-host. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Salim.
Coach, there's a lot to talk about because the season is among us, like literally in 4 days. Friday's the first game, and then Liverpool has the morning kickoff here in the States.
Yeah. The moment is nigh, as they say. So yeah. Pre-season is done and dusted, and the big day is on Saturday morning.
I'm so excited.
Oh yeah. I don't think it matters what club you support. The first day of the season is always a day of optimism, and everyone gets excited. And they just had the championship this weekend, as you probably know, the second tier. Everybody gets excited, but the bubble soon bursts for some. With Wayne Rooney's team, Plymouth Argyle getting hammered at Sheffield Wednesday, and Preston losing, and the manager's already sacked. So
Wow.
that's
All right.
I don't know how they do that after just one game, but they do. So anyway,
Unbelievable. Yeah. Let's cover the results over the last two exhibition games, preseason games, whatever you want to call them, and start with Liverpool's 4-1 win over Sevilla at Anfield. There was some beautiful goals, and Jota's goal specifically off the volley was well. I mean, it was a great shot, but it was kind of what we expect from him. The guy scores goals.
he does, and yeah, he's just very calm. He's balanced. He concentrates on hitting it well, and he does. And it's before you know it, the ball's in the back of the net.
Yeah, beautiful goal. Trent crossed it in, and yeah, he just struck it with his left. A beautiful goal. Great. The way he shaped his body to hit it far post was really nice. Technically, it was a thing of beauty as well.
Yeah. You just can't top technique like that, and as I kind of hinted at, he seemed to know exactly what he was doing. Just concentrate and hit the ball well, and uh, hopefully you get a result. And he certainly did on this occasion.
And seeing Luis Diaz back from Colombia and comes up with a beautiful first goal, and then Saboslai basically gives him one on a silver platter.
Right. The second goal obviously was a tap in, but the point is that the whole build up started with Allison at the back, and the ball comes downfield, and yeah, it's just handed on a plate for him, and he takes it.
And then Trainioni, the young 17-year-old, even gets in on the action.
Yeah, good goal. So yeah, nice for him. Nice for him. It's going to be interesting to see what the manager does with him this season,
Yeah.
because we'll come on to talk about both games. But I think essentially he played his bench in the second game of the day. So whether, well, I think that's very likely to maybe keep him on the periphery for right now. But he's obviously talented. He's had a very good preseason. Uh, I know he played under Jurgen Klopp a little bit, but he's kind of moved himself up the ladder. And who knows what's happened when, say, things like the League Cup come around, and maybe then he'll get his opportunity.
Yeah. And then the 0-0 versus Las Palmas, and this was behind closed doors, so it was interesting to have two games. But as you alluded, we kind of have an idea of who the starters are for now, and who the bench is.
Correct, correct. I don't know whether he played Robertson in the second game because there's an issue as he comes back from an injury.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that he's going to make a decision on that based on where he is with his injury status for the Ipswich game.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that was one grey area. Obviously, Nunes and Gakpo were on the shadow team, or the second game. So it looks like they're going to start from the bench next weekend. But I would say two pretty good players to be bringing in off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to think who else. Elliott and Jones were. I think they would probably be ahead of Neone in terms of the pecking order. They were in the second game, as was Endo, of course, who it appears that Arne Slot doesn't really fancy Endo.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens next. And I'm sure we'll come on to chat about some of the transfer possibilities. And one thing, and I think we mentioned this before, was Liverpool have a lot of players who are
Right.
kind of in contention, 40 plus. And there's going to be a shaving of the squad for sure. And that's before you even consider bringing in new players. So Endo, will he still be with the team at the end of the month? That'll be an interesting question that's yet to be answered.
Yeah, we can jump into that now. There was a lot of reports last week about Martin Zubimendi coming to Liverpool. I think £50 million, which for a defensive midfielder nowadays is probably pretty affordable, considering a lot of them go for 100 million. And the last three big ones, Declan Rice and Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo, all went for over 100 million. So
Right.
having a talent like that for 51 million is pretty affordable. It seems like for some reason we can't get it across the line, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because of the Endo talk. There's talks that as soon as he comes in, Endo will go out. At least that's the rumor.
Well, I think there's a couple of possibilities. I know he played Gravenberg as as the defensive midfielder against Seville. I've not seen enough of Gravenberg to kind of feel that that's his position. So that'll be an interesting call. That'll be an interesting call. I mean, he's very athletic, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a good number six, as it were. So there's well, the internet, of course, is full of rumors as always. So basically, for that position, uh, Gravenberg, Endo, McAllister's played there in the past. The issue is, does that take away something positive that McAllister brings to the team playing further up the field?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got Bajcetic, of course, the young lad who is very talented and did well a couple of seasons ago with an extended run, but was injury plagued last year. There is a rumor. I mean, he's still young. I think he's 19.
Right.
So there's a rumor that he might go out on loan. So I would even speculate that they might keep Endo as a reserve if Bajcetic goes out on loan. Um, so yeah, there's all these different things happening, and of course we've got all these fans and fan sites panicking because Liverpool haven't signed anybody, and the Zubimendi situation, which has kind of dragged on, hasn't really helped, has it? I I I feel that Liverpool will probably bring in a player or two before the window shuts, but I think there's an awful lot more players going to be going in the other direction. To be truthful,
Yeah, for sure. The one interesting transfer that's a former Liverpool player, Solanke, moved from Bournemouth to Tottenham. That
hmm
was kind of interesting. That was one of a bigger ones that we've seen. And Julian Alvarez going from Manchester City to Atletico Madrid, that's a really interesting one as well. And you just thought that he was such a good player for City that he would have stayed, but I guess he wants more playing time, and I get it. But the the reality is that we've discussed this almost ad nauseum that the team is very very good, and Slot seems to be integrating his system pretty well. I was listening to a couple people talk about the Sevilla game, and they mentioned Gravenberch had a very very good game,
hmm
which was interesting. Obviously, I didn't get the chance to watch the whole game, but or even the game at all. But I watched highlights, and the highlights are they make they make everybody look great, right? But
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. So I mean, he, as I say, he's not touted as a defensive midfielder. So I don't know whether the manager legitimately sees him in that position or whether it's just a stopgap or a potential stopgap role for the player. Because Curtis Jones, I mean, like Klopp tried Curtis Jones as a defensive midfielder, as did Slot in pre-season, and that's just not his position. That's just not
yeah,
his position. Um, he's more of a holding player potentially if you're going to play two. If you're going to play like a pivot and then a distributor. Going back, as I think we've mentioned before, the Benitez era when they had Mascherano and Alonso, who
right.
kind of played alongside each other. One was the destroyer, one was the creator. So I guess Jones would be more on the creator side than the defensive side.
Yeah, the midfield is stacked when you just kind of take a look at it, and the potential addition of Zubimendi. But I mean, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Elliott, Gravenberch. Um, I mean, it's Endo, Jones. There's so many in there, which is nice because again, with the five subs, I'm interested in seeing if as Slot kind of continues to implement his style and the team gets more used to it, and how he can use five subs very much like Jurgen did last year to get the best out of the team and to get a result. So you know again, like we've said, the team is deep, the team is good as is, but it's always exciting to get a potential uh, person coming in, and Zubimendi, I think, from again watching highlights. But I watched a bunch of different ones. He's not he's not a goal scorer, but he's a silky smooth Spanish midfielder that gets the ball out of his feet and plays very quickly. They called him a press. He's press resistant. So if they press him, it's not really a big deal to him. He can get out of situations with simple passes.
Right, right. But I guess the question is, this has been going on for a long time now. So why hasn't he signed? And there are rumours, of course, that Liverpool, well, now that they've given a deadline and they're looking at other options. So yeah, yeah. So will it happen? Will it not happen? I guess we have to find out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Sociedad, I guess, is making a push to keep him, so they're trying to convince him to stay. So we'll
Well,
see
it's a
what
push to
happens.
keep. Yeah, yeah, it's a push to keep him, but it's complicated because Arsenal are looking at that other Spanish midfielder, Marino.
Right, he's at
Um,
Sociedad too. Yeah,
yeah, and I don't think they want to sell both of them. So yeah, it's not. It's not straightforward.
yeah, yeah. They ended sixth in La Liga last year, so they had a pretty decent campaign.
Decent season, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's move on to the Ipswich game at Portman Road. Ipswich has a history of being in the top flight. Coach, can you give us maybe a little historical perspective on that? I know that you followed this league for a long time, and you have a steel trap for a mind. So,
Well, actually, the very, very first game that I can remember going to, because my father used to take me when I was young and I didn't like football. Very first game that I can remember going to when I had fallen in love with the game was at Anfield against Ipswich Town, and this is back in the 63-64 season when Liverpool won the title for the first time under Bill Shankly. And actually, Ipswich 2 years before had been champions of England. It was a very different league in those days, as you can kind of imagine. And Ipswich actually ended up getting relegated that season, only 2 years after winning the league. And Liverpool killed them, 6-0. It was 6-0. I don't expect that on Saturday morning. I'm not expecting that's kind of a game. They've been out of the top flight, I believe, for over a decade now.
mm-hmm.
But over the years, like they had great teams in the 80s under Bobby Robson. They won the UEFA Cup. They were challenging for the league regularly. And they've kind of been through a period in their history where they've been down in the doldrums. They actually went into the third tier for a bit and have quickly worked their way up from third to second, second to first.
Yeah, in consecutive seasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of credit for that goes down to the manager, who is a former Man United, not obviously not first team, but he and I'm blanking on his name.
Kieran McKenna. Kieran McKenna.
Kieran McKenna.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. He was a youth coach at Manchester United. It was even rumoured that if Ten Hag left this year, that he could be brought back. So he's highly rated, and to take the team in double quick time from the third tier to the top tier. Obviously, he's got something going for him. I actually watched a game on TV while I was home last Christmas. I watched the local derby with Norwich City, which was a draw. And at that particular point, they'd been going well, and they'd just kind of hit a little bit of a slump. And it looked like they were starting to go in the opposite direction from what they were intending. They were starting to slip down the league. They had some injuries, but he certainly seemed to pull them around. And I believe they came second. I believe they came second last year. So he's done a great job. I think the thing I would say going into the game is that it's always hard to play these teams that have just come up first game, and it's at Portman Road. It's at Ipswich's home ground. So they are going to be up for it.
Right.
I think that when you play them like maybe the sixth or seventh game of the season going to Portman Road, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, it's the new season excitement.
Yeah, there's the new season excitement, as you say, and everybody's optimistic. So I think it'll be a tight game. It won't be a 6-0 game like that very first game that I watched when I was a lad. And looking at the Ipswich squad overall, they don't really have any stars on the team. They don't really have any big names or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so does that mean it's going to be a walkover for Liverpool? I don't think that means it's going to be a walkover. But yeah, I think it'll be. I think it'll be a tough game. I think it'll be a tough game. The only names that I really recognise from it are really players that have gone from academy teams, Premier academies, like Liam Delap, who was at Manchester City
Hmm.
and was highly touted but never quite made it. And then they've signed from Chelsea a big money signing this summer, Amari Hutchinson. There's also a striker who used to play over at Everton. He's a Welsh international called Nathan Broadhead. And so those are really the only names that I recognise. And I would say that on paper it should be a game that Liverpool win, but will it be straightforward given all of the circumstances? The excitement of that first game, as we said, and then Liverpool's a new team under a new manager. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And actually, they have a former Manchester United player that was highly touted. Now that I look closer,
Hmm.
can't pronounce his name. Axel Twanzebe. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced,
Okay.
but he got a good run in the team a few years ago, and then they sent him out to Aston Villa, where he played over 20 games. So he's very athletic. He's very athletic. That's I remember.
Yeah, he's in
So
defense, right?
he's a
I
defender. He's a
remember him. Yeah,
defender.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So he's there. So they have some of these young academy starlets that didn't quite make it at their clubs, but maybe have some talent and ability. And it appears the manager has been able to get the best out of them.
Yeah, when I was just kind of researching a little bit about Ipswich Town, the and Kieran McKenna, he does play a attractive brand of football with a, attacking football. It's not park the bus kind of situation. However, um, it's a completely new league with superstars all over the league and good teams all over the league. So I'm interested in seeing if he's going to kind of use that, Leeds United mentality when they finally came back to the Premier League and under Bielsa,
Bielsa, yeah.
Bielsa, yeah, sorry, and he, kind of ran them into the ground. But it'll be interesting to see if Kieran McKenna does the same thing, or if he kind of chooses his spots. It's always fun, especially with new teams. It seems like Liverpool always gets a team that comes up from the Championship. Leeds a couple years ago was the first game.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
remember exactly who was last year, but
It
it's
was Chelsea last
oh,
year.
that's
So,
right,
but
with the
but
1-1 game. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
right, right. So yeah, that's an interesting question. How will the manager choose to play? Um, because I think McKenna is touted with playing a pretty attractive open type of game, and he had the situation last year with Vincent Company at Burnley where he wouldn't back down, and because he wouldn't back down, the team went down.
Right.
So yeah, it could well be a case that in this first game that they play fairly open because it is the first game and he's excited and all that kind of stuff. My gut feeling is over the course of the season, if they intend to stay up, he's probably going to have to compromise a little bit because, again, Burnley walked the league 2 years ago, but I mean, Luton were far more effective because they compromised
Right.
and they played a little more conservatively. Later on, he was able to open up a bit, and probably because he did, that's why they went down as well. So
Hmm.
it's a very tricky proposition for these championship clubs that come up under the league as it is right now, because some of the teams that who have been in the Premier League for a while and seem to be regularly involved with well, the relegation issue, seem to have the ability to get enough points to stay up. So, yeah, I, I think that's why we've got such a yo-yo type situation right now in the Premier League, with teams come up and then they go straight back down again.
Yeah. Well, it's a tough league, and I think it takes something special from those teams to stay up. Plus, from a financial standpoint, you have to be, you can't be too too aggressive in signing, a lot of players with Premier League experience, because then you have to make, the team has to kind of gel, and then if they go down, those guys are gone. So it's a kind of an interesting balancing act on having the right mixture of the guys that you had last year, that what they're capable of, but also sprinkling some additions in there that might help. So it's always interesting to see. The relegation battle is almost as interesting as the battle at the top. I mean, you see these teams fight and scrap, and the it's a big difference from a financial standpoint staying in the Premier League, obviously, than the second tier at in the Championship. Although that's a great league as well.
Yeah, it's a great league, but sadly, the modern game is about money. So Premier League is I think teams are happy to stay in the Premier League every year because it's money.
Right, of course, yeah. So it'll be interesting. I think the game, especially if he starts out with like an attacking brand, I think the counterattack for Liverpool can be devastating. So I think the game is gonna go in Liverpool's favor, 3-1, something like that. I think there'll be a 2-goal margin.
Hmm.
But again, we'll see. And so far so good as far as the preseason. They've won every game and tied one. So Slot seems to be getting through to these players, and they had some decent competition. He's got a good look at everybody, so from the academy, and the big guns, as you said last week, are back, and now it's just kind of
Hmm.
working them in and making sure they're fit. And it was a busy summer. It was just a very busy summer. Julian Alvarez played in the Copa America and the Olympics.
Hmm.
I was stunned to see him on the Olympic team. Just like, oh my God, and it's a lot of soccer, a lot of football.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I guess he made the choice.
Yeah, yep, I get it. It must be difficult, especially being young, to turn down these incredible opportunities and these incredible tournaments. I mean, the Olympics is as a competition, representing your country is a complete different level. So I understand him wanting to be part of everything, but he's off to Atleti, so we don't have to worry about him. The
Hmm.
the the August the next game. There's two games in August. There's Ipswich at Portman Road, and then we have Brentford at home. So seems like two winnable games on paper. We have then in September we have United at Old Trafford. We've generally done well there in the recent history. We'll see how that one goes. Then we have Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, and we just discussed earlier in the podcast that Solanke is no longer there, so their goal scorer is no longer there. And then Wolves at Wolves, and then in October, this is when it starts to get spicy. So Crystal Palace away, that again another winnable game, and then Chelsea at home and Arsenal away. So I mean, till mid October, we other than United on paper now. I'm saying on paper because they have to play the games, and you never know what happens. Looks like a pretty easy start again on paper for a new manager to come in and really be able to implement his system and continue with the guys that just returned to lead up to the tougher stretch of games starting with Chelsea in mid October.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure the games will be competitive. There's always a question mark in terms of there is a new manager. If it was Jurgen Klopp in charge, obviously you've got a sense of how Liverpool are going to go out and play. I know Arnie Slot favours a more attacking type of game, but there'll be differences. There'll be differences. So I think from a fan perspective, we need kind of a run of competitive games now to see what he's about, how he wants his teams to play, how they attack, how they defend, restarts, all of the bits and pieces that make a good competitive team. I mean, like the squad's very good on paper. The squad's very good on paper. Now it comes down to okay, we've still got 2 or 3 weeks in the transfer window, as we noted earlier. Are some going to leave? Are some going to stay? Contract situations, will they be resolved? So there's kind of a lot going on in the background, and as I noted earlier, there's a lot of noise from certain elements of the fan base about the lack of transfer activity. The FSG doesn't care crowd. So I personally don't quite see it that way. I think, I think we've said this before that the manager's evaluating the situation, and Liverpool has a good squad. It's certainly not a squad that's in a similar situation to the one that Klopp inherited, where they clearly had some deadwood and they needed to make changes. And that's not to say that Liverpool don't need to make changes here, but it's a lot more solid, isn't it, than the one that Klopp had to take over from Brendan
For
Rodgers.
sure. Yeah, for sure. Coach, as we kind of, watch the highlights of the Sevilla game and Las Palmas game, the starting lineup for Ipswich game, I have some positions that I think are pretty much nailed in. Allison in goal, Trent on the right, Virgil in the middle with Kwanzaa. Saboslai seems to be definitely a starting midfielder. Salah, Jota, and Diaz up front. So I'm missing the left back. Assuming Robertson's healthy, I'm thinking he'll be there. But the center in the middle, other than Saboslai, is it Gravenberch? Is it Jones? Is it
Well,
McAllister?
well, I think two of the midfielders will be Sabozlai and McAllister. The question comes down to who's the third one going to be, and he played Gravenberg there last weekend, so I see no reason why he wouldn't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's pretty much going to be the team that played against Seville. Uh, and he may choose not to start Robertson, because he's had a couple of injuries and it seems to have been an issue. So maybe he might feel, well, we've got a long season ahead, with Champions League, and they've changed the format. There's more games, so he may not rush Robertson back. I mean, like Simicus has done okay, so yeah, he's had a run and he seems to be doing fine.
Yeah.
So I guess it comes down to who does he have on the bench, and yeah, so I think Kelleher.
Dar-
Now he didn't really play Gomez at the weekend. He didn't play him in the second string game, so I'm wondering if that's significant.
yeah, he came in the Sevilla game for Virgil.
Yeah,
Where
yeah, but it was pretty much at the end of the
right.
game. So I don't know if that's significant. He didn't play. He didn't play Vandenberg in either game, which suggests that he could be on his
I think
way.
so. Yeah, I agree.
Um, and they sold Cavallo, of course, even though he had a good tour and everything. So my instinct there tells me that probably the manager thought he's a good player, but there's a lot more good players, and you can only play so many. And I think Carvalho has a history that if he's not playing, he's not happy, and he can't keep it in.
Right.
So even though he's good and he's talented and he did well, it's probably better to move him on.
Right. Where did he go again?
Vanden, he's gone to Brentford
That's right.
actually,
That's right.
so he could be coming back to Anfield pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Vandenberg's been quite verbal about his desire to be playing regularly, and I understand that over 10 teams are looking at him, so he's valued. And my guess is that the club will look at that and say, okay, we can get a bidding war going here,
Right.
and get some money for him, because I believe that Carvalho went for 27 million, and I think they won 25 million for Vandenberg. And in theory, if they get it,
That would.
that pays for Zubimendi.
Right. Yeah.
And I know the fans criticise this, but call me old-fashioned, even though the numbers are a lot bigger than they used to be. But isn't that how you should run a soccer club or a football club? I mean, because you've got the situation at Chelsea again, where they've signed 11 players.
I don't know how they're getting away with all this.
And yeah, and okay, they've had a number go the other way, but it's still kind of, when you're getting Everton and Nottingham Forest called out for peanuts, and Chelsea are spending the big bucks, and it's a revolving door. It must be a nightmare for a manager. I mean,
Yeah. Pochettino did a decent
but
job, and they just said nope. And yeah,
well,
it's tough.
yeah, yeah, I've been led to believe that it was Pochettino that wasn't so happy about that. Like he wanted more of a say in the transfers, and probably to put more of a rein on it, because you can't build a stable club and a stable team if you've got all the ins and outs, constant revolving door.
Right.
So yeah, they've got a heck of a lot of talent, but there's so much uncertainty there. I mean, I was reading something that where the guy had two potential Chelsea teams, and then players like Mudryk weren't even in either team.
Wow.
So yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to make head or tail of it, but anyway, so I think FSG. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but I don't see why they have to be going out and just buying whoever, whenever. And I think Klopp was a manager that that wanted players pretty much that fit into his system, and I think the indications are that Arne Slot's the same.
Yeah, and Klopp never, put up a stink if a player wasn't signed or anything like that. So that was always good to know and see that he is, okay with the way it's run, and he's okay with how it kind of shakes out at the end. So, yeah, it seems like Slot is very similar. So we'll definitely see what happens. I do want to mention something here. We do have we just started a Premier League fantasy league.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we have 4 or 5 people in it already, but we do want to extend it to the fans that play it, that listen to this podcast. And those who don't, if you go to fantasy.premierleague.com, you can log in or sign in and create your own fantasy team. And the code for our league is CHPX42. Again, that's CHPX42. So those who are listening, please jump in and join our fantasy league. It's a lot of fun, and we'll be updating it as the season goes on for to see who's going to win. And Coach and I have possibly talked about sending that person a gift, so who wins it at the end. So we'll see what happens. We're excited about it. We're excited for the season, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's see who out there knows the most about the Premier League and the beautiful game.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I've been playing it for over 20 years, and it's interesting when you follow a team and you want them to do well, but then you have other players that are really good, and they're on your against your they're rivals of your team. And do you add them? Do you not? It's it's interesting predicament.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think fantasy football's fun to play, and yeah, it'd be great to have some more people in the league.
All right, everybody. We are looking forward to the game on Saturday, and Coach and I will be back next week to really dive into it. And I'm really excited for it, Coach, because we get to see the differences in Slott's team and tactics versus Jurgen Klopp's, and we'll kind of get a better idea as the games go on. But it's nice to see that the initial one is right there, and we'll get a good idea because these games count now.
They count, and let's hope it's not one of those situations where the preseason results have been good, but then when it comes down to the acid test, it's a different story. So we shall soon see.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks again for your insight and joining me as always. Liverpool fans, the season's right around the corner. We're excited to talk more about it with you guys. And Coach, I will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Liverpool fans, thank you so much for listening to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and would greatly appreciate your support. Please leave a 5-star review and feel free to email us at tlrlfcpodcast@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Till next time.